have a orientation visual system, is that the female's visuals integrate information from the global periphery. And the GABA is used for deliberate actionality so that the females can choose what to focus and target, which makes them have a cognitive visual system, which can see more of everything at once. So at any given instant and at any given glance, a female sees more than a man does, significantly more. The peripheral visual field is significantly larger than the central visual field is. And what's more is to be able to use the global peripheral visuals. Females still see faster than males. Again, that's something we're going to get into in future videos. But females start visually processing information earlier than males. They recruit more brain areas. They categorize that information more efficiently. Efficient means to do with minimal effort and complete and accomplish quickly. The combination of these two words is what efficient means. Females having more efficient visual process than men, despite seeing many-fold more than what men are seeing clearly and canonically, and that being integrated in parallel per instant. But we're going to get into more of this. The female's brain is a lot more visually intelligent, so this also means that the female wouldn't stare and gawk for as long, and she can attend to more of the male's material physicality. She can visually tend to more of the male's material physicality much better at glancing with a short look, and she categorizes information to visual memory better, more efficiently, and retrieve it, which is information we're going to go into. The male, however, has significantly less ovaries, and in turn males have significantly less estrogen, and in turn males have significantly less neuroadrenaline in their brain and significantly less grey matter than females. What does this mean? Well, visual information that the brain can consciously concentrate on is integrated into the parietal lobe using neuroadrenaline. Neuroadrenaline is what integrates visual information. Without this, you can get what's called cognitive tunneling, which is effectively it is tunnel vision, which is central vision. And cognitive tunneling, or the ability of the brain to block out other information that it's not directly focusing on, so it enhances the contrast of the information that isn't focused on. It enhances the information that is being focused on. It's called contrast enhancement. What happens here is this is done by acetylcholine. The acetylcholinergic signals in the brain that males are more sensitive to, and males synthesize more acetylcholinergic, more acetylcholine, and they're more sensitive to the acetylcholinergic signaling in the brain. This causes lateral inhibition, or what's called surround inhibition. Inhibition means to inhibit. Lateral means side. Surround means surrounding. It inhibits the surrounding nerves. So once the main nervous signals have come in from the central visual portion of the retina, the periphery is actually further blocked out by the male's acetylcholine. So even though the eye anatomy has caused around a fourfold greater, heavier reliance on the central visuals in men, the set-specific neurochemistry of the brain further enhances that effect. In the female's neuroadrenaline is further integrating visual information or sensory information for this matter. Whereas in the males, it's blocking this information out. And what happens is when the male sees an attractive female, the catecholamines are released, which include neuroadrenaline, which is a type of adrenaline that occurs in adrenaline rushes, and that can be blocked with GABA, which females also produce more of. But acetylcholine, which is the male's version of directing their attentionality in a conscious way. GABA is what your prefrontal cortex uses to inhibit your amygdala and your limbic and fight and flight areas of your brain that make you emotionally impulsive or contribute to emotional impulsivity. And what happens is the male's visual system is using an acetylcholinergic aspect to a much greater degree, and acetylcholine is bypassed by the neuroadrenaline. So when the male's attracted to the female and he looks at her face and he looks at her bust and he looks at her legs, this is the neuroadrenaline aspect of the visual attraction. You have what's called the brainstem. There is the locus coeruleus. It synthesizes neuroadrenaline. This information connects to the emotional area of the amygdala and of the insula and of the cingulate cortex, which is integrated, and the thalamus, which is where all the sensory information aside from smell converges onto the thalamus. And what happens here is the brain locus coeruleus causes hypervigilance, and it integrates the exteroceptive, the external environment, into the interoceptive, the internal environment of the body. So internally we can feel this about that. It connects the external and it connects the internal and the external world, and this happens within our visual nervous system, within our visual systems. And so this is what the salience network is doing, and this neuroadrenaline is something that the male's acetylcholine cannot regulate. So males have what's called a bottom-up visual system, emotional impulsivity. So if something is salient, and so if it's prominent and it grabs your attention, when it grabs the male's attention, what happens with this is when it grabs the male's attention, the male is compelled to look and see. And this is where the male looks at the bust and then looks back at the face with his central vision. It's a very clumsy move. It's something a lot of males do in a female's context of having the global peripheral visuals and not having this tunnel vision and not seeing a central visual version of the world. It's a curiosity that females don't necessarily comprehend naturally. They can't comprehend it naturally because they don't have that. They don't have those central visuals. Females don't have 38% more macular photopigment, and they don't have 40% less of the peripheral visuals. And as we go into more videos, you will see that that is the tip of the iceberg. There is more to this than just that. And so the human mirror neuron system of the female is where her brain's cells, which are neurons, are brain cells, and the mirror is used for reflection of ourselves and others. The brain cell creates a visual reflection from the visuals of the external world from the male, and connects that with her own motor repertoire, which is a visual motor repertoire in the female based on eye anatomy alone, 80% or fourfold more of the peripheral global visuals to comprehend the male's social actionality, and even to respond to it, to the social actionality, which is in part done by the action preparation network, which is also part of the human mirror neuron system. And you can see that information on bibliography 359N. So what we have here is from the human mirror neuron system, the default mode network attaches the internalized county-line schemata to comprehend someone else's actions. While the human mirror neuron system has done the embodied simulation, the default mode network makes a high-leveled inference with internalized information, which makes the human mirror neuron system a self-projection on its own. You were taking the male and the females, respectively, are taking their own central, local, or global peripheral visual versions of the world and the social events within the world, or on the world, or within the world, into their own motor repertoire. And from their own motor repertoire, they're gaining the comprehension of what those actions mean. But what those actions mean only correctly applicable in the context of themselves. They are not directly connected to the brains of other people. The visuals of other people are being bounced off their own motor repertoire. That makes this information self-relevant. It makes it self-referential. They're referring to themselves for the information to infer what the other person is doing. They're referring to themselves when they make a simulation, which is embodied. They are making a mismentalized. They are miscomprehending. This is, to an extent, this is psychic equivalence, which is called the breakdown of mentalization. This is when you are not mentalizing what a person's actions and intentions actually mean. You are inferring your own, and to an aspect, this is psychic equivalence, where you take the information in your brain, be it emotional and the emotional reasonings and decisions and judgments that you've made with this information that's inside of your brain, your own sensory evidence, your own sensorium, and you have relied on it with an unsettling level of certainty, which puts it into black and white thinking, where there is no room for the alternative interpretation. And that is because the nervous signals from the autonomic nervous system, which make emotions by being integrated into the to the nodes of the brain that process emotions, amygdala, insula, hippocampal formation, cingulate cortex, these areas that form emotions in the brain. These are formed with the autonomic nervous system, which is the conjugation of your collective nervous system as a whole, is your autonomic nervous system. What happens here is they're not only causing emotions, these emotional areas then recruit the frontal areas of the brain, like the prefrontal cortex, the orbital frontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is recruited, the dorsal medial prefrontal cortex by the insula, by the amygdala, and these emotions are integrated here. And this is what causes your prefrontal cortex dorsal medial. Dorsal means top, medial means medium, from medium, which the medium is the middle. So it's the top middle part of your prefrontal cortex. It's integrated into this area for categorization and contextualization, but categorization also, to categorize what these emotional states that are occurring in your body that have triggered your autonomic nervous system to send signals up to the brain, which induce the emotions, so that the emotions can then be categorized. So now you can comprehend what is the problem in your external environment, what is the salient, prominent aspect of our external world, which is grasping our visual attentionality right now. What is that? And so from here, this is an aspect of your default mode network, which is necessarily directly connected to the human mirror neuron system. And this is where you can make this high level inference from these kinds of contextualizations. From there, the prefrontal cortex goes to the hippocampal formation, which is made of the entorhinal, parahippocampal is collectively, it is considered the epicenter of memory within the brain. And your visual association cortex networks with your prefrontal cortex, which works like a switchboard of categorization and links to the area of the brain where memory occurs, and visual memory occurs, visual working memory at the parahippocampal place area or parahippocampal scene area, a combination of the occipital visual area and the memory area, which enables recognition as well as storage of information and from memory to recognize. Re means again, co means to gather, so it's to gather again. GNO or GNI means to know, and eyes is being endowed with the characteristic of. So it is to know again, is to regather again, to know. It is the action of doing that recognition, to recognize what we've seen again. These are the Proto-Indo-European factual meanings of words, and that's in bibliography 347. With the unabridged version, you will find those words. Any word that I've explained etymologically as its root definition, which is largely what occurs in science, as we use root definitions a lot more than we do in day-to-day colloquial language. You'll find that in bibliography 347. And so this internal inference, this inference of what other people are doing, is being made purely from the human mirror neuron system and default mode network exclusively, which form the basis of human social cognition. And this causes the female to think that the male is gawking, because she would be gawking, and even to expect that he will approach, even though there's overwhelming evidence, statistically, empirically, the male will not approach just because he is gawked at you. The vast majority of males, statistically based on empiricism, which is self-observation that you've observed, he does not approach. And that's because he has central vision, he is looking to see. And he has the emotional impulsivity in his neurotransmitters, whereas in the adrenaline that's produced is one of the catecholamines when he's attracted. Bibliography 187b, as a neurochemical, when he's attracted, these catecholamines cause him to look impulsively, because he can't. The acetylcholine is bypassed by the neuroadrenaline. Bibliography 169 BC and 269 BC and 271 BC. The neuroadrenaline bypasses acetylcholine's inhibitory effect. But this doesn't occur with GABA. Bibliography PVC. This does not occur with GABA of the unabridged version. Anything above 13 is the unabridged version. The bibliography, the highest bibliography, 13 is as far as the bibliography goes in the abridged version. The unabridged version goes farther than that. So this means that at the bus stop, and if you can remember from the above visuals, so you can see here a visual line. This is a visual line whereby this is to make an explanatory illustration that clearly demarcates what the male can see clearly, and this bin is clearly defined while the women at the bus stop are not. They are faintly visible, and this is to show you that this is what the male can see, and while he's not looking directly, he has significantly less peripheral visuals than a female, and so he's seeing a central visual version of this world, and the male's going to have to do what you see on this left image here, which is direct his visual attentionality given target locations in order for his visual working memory to take snapshots and build up a picture of these abstract visual encoding instances into his brain across every 300 and 500 milliseconds. So first he's going to look at the female's face here, and then he's going to look at the female next to you, and then he's going to look at the next female's legs, maybe, and then the next female. And what even as you see on the fourth image, where he's looking at the fourth image, when he's looking at the next females, he's walking along. You can see like 1, 2, 3, 4. He's walking along 4 steps. He's looked at 4 visual locations. His visual central visuals are moving around. Even from there, he alternates to visual target locations on that woman to see her abdomen and torso, and to see her legs here as well. Yeah, abdomen. And And this central visual version of the world operates at 0 to 15 degree field of vision, which is to say that the visual locations are being constantly redirected. This is to say that the male has to constantly reallocate and reorient his visual attentionality and pre-allocate his visual attentionality to different visual locations, and then again reorient his central visuals. The males have what is called a central visual orientation system, a visual orientation system, whereas in females have a peripheral global visual system, which is called a landmarking visual system. These different visual systems being used by the human mirror neuron system in these different motor repertoires necessarily lead to these instances through the human mirror neuron system and embodied simulation and high level inferences of the default mode network. Where you can read more about this information in Bibliography 0.0 of the book. CVP specifically covers a much heavier male-centric aspect of the visual system. PVC has more information, and it covers this bibliography specifically covers a very female, woman-centric version of this social context and of the information, which changes the peripheral and the central visuals. So the central visual information is in PVC, and the peripheral visual context is in PVC. And 0.0 is a combination of these two, and where misconception and misinterpretation, miscommunication and mismentalization, and the psychic equivalents and such like stem from, although psychic equivalence is in bibliography 300b, with some neural evidence of how psychic equivalence occurs in the brain, but it's not in bibliography 0.0, but transference and self-projection is happening here. And for this relevant information where these things occur, the bibliography again defers you and refers you to the gives you the correct bibliography to see for that information. So this is why males are gawking. This is what males are always gawking at. This is from a scenario in my book called "What Are Males Always Gawking At?" with a question mark, and it is an illustrated scenario. What my book does, this is the abridged version, which is an easier, fun read, which I would recommend for basically anybody. If someone is highly conscientious and they like a lot of information and they like to get stuck into crunchy information and really go through a bunch of contours and specifics, the unabridged version of the book has a lot more information for that reason. And the unabridged version has been broken into such a way that on the left column, when you're reading the book, what you will see is a very simplified visual explanatory explanation of these scenarios, including what men are always talking about, various other scenarios, like why boys demand undivided central visual attention from their mothers when they want to show them a trick, and then accuse their mothers of not looking because their visuals weren't in a 15-degree, fourfold smaller central visual reliance field based on eye anatomy alone. I'm not saying there isn't more to make that visual field even smaller in males. I'm saying in this video we're covering at least a fourfold heavier reliance on central visions, which means that the male's human mirror neuron system is, because how is the boy making that inference to accuse mom of not looking? How do we do that? We're making that inference because the boy is taking the information into his human mirror neuron system. He's sending that information, and then off of his own motor repertoire of the visuals of the way that mom's looking, that information is then attached with the default mode network's internalized context for those actions to predict and make a high-level inference from the low-level embodied simulation of the human mirror neuron system. The default mode network can then attach the high-level inference from the content, from the sensory information in the boy's own head. I mean, do we as people connect directly to the neural evidence of other people? No, we don't. Or fortune tellers and people who can be psychic and read the audience and say this about them, they would not be fascinating people at all, would they? They would be nothing special. It's like, well, everybody does that. But we are not Charles Xavier. We do not directly connect to the sensory evidence of other people's heads. We have emotional information which creates valence in our own heads. And this is salient, and it is initiated from and starts from taking the social sensory information from other people. And this sensory evidence feels, we can feel it. We can feel this in our head. We can feel this information. This is neural information. This is the information that our body uses to make decisions, period. This is the information that our brain uses to make thoughts and to generate thoughts. This is something that has a lot of valence. But is it actually in our brain that we feel this? If we just got rid of our brain and body, would we still be able to feel that information? Just because it's going on in them? This information occurs within us. So what happens is for the boy to make that inference, the visuals are bounced off of his own motor repertoire, and then his internalized context is attached, and that's how he accuses mum of not looking, because he sees a central visual version of the same event. He sees a central visual version of this world, and that's in the scenario called Boys with Balls from the unabridged version of the book. And what you're going to find is if a boy wants to show a ball trick, a lot of boys get footballs. Boys often use footballs for a while when they're young. It's a common thing for boys to do at some point. And sometimes they want to show their mum that they can kick the ball up 5 times, or they want to show them a trick, and they expect their mum to look with direct central visuals, and then they accuse their mum of not looking. And that's something that happens due to the boy's central vision working with his HMNS, human mirror neuron system, in default mode network, which leads to gawking. And there are other scenarios covered in the book, and what we do is we look at the genealogy, which is not much. It's not much to look at. These are set-specific differences. We look at the neuro-ophthalmology, which is ophthalmic from the Proto-European word OKW, ok, means to see with the eye, and neuron pertaining to neuron, meaning of the neuron pertaining to the neuron, which is a brain cell. So it's how the visuals we see with the eye influence the brain, and the brain cells the brain. And we look at the visual motor framework for each scenario. And then we'll have a segment on human ethology, so how this is comprehended in terms of human behavior. Prior to that, neuropsychology, that is the psychology pertaining to the neuron's activity. Ology is attached to a lot of many words, is a suffix attached to the end of many words. The word suff means at the end, and fix means to fasten. It's word fasten to the end of many words. Biology, astrology, psychology, The word ology from the word logia, Logia, a log, like a captain's log, where you write down information, is a body of knowledge to indoctrinate. It's the doctrine of knowledge that enables others to come to know given information. So ology, neurology is a body of knowledge and the study of the body of knowledge pertaining to neurons. Neurons are brain cells. So it's the body and study of knowledge of brain cells.